Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Bruce Weinstein. He's the founder of Weinstein Wealth Insurance Solutions and host of Ask the Plan Man podcast. And he has consistently offered his clients the insights, strategies, and the clear direction designed to make them educated financial decisions and prepare themselves for their futures. Welcome to the show, Bruce.
Thank you, AJ. Happy to be here. Hope to bring some good wisdom to your listeners.
Absolutely. You have 36 plus years of experience, and that's a lot of wisdom you can certainly impart. And everybody wants to learn about money, about having financial independence. You also talk about the right to financial dignity. So let's start with that. What exactly is financial dignity, and how what is right to financial dignity? Can everybody have it? Well, does the Constitution guarantee?
Yeah. All right. Well, guarantee is a different word altogether, but the emphasis behind what I've been doing for many, many years is that we all have these rights. At least in the United States, there's a lot of rights and availability and free enterprise and commerce, right? And so as we age and adulthood and get into our business careers, whatever that might be, you kind of have two choices. You could go make your own business and try and be rich, or you could work for somebody else and make them rich. And so you want to be able to get into a position where you have enough assets and resources that you're financially comfortable. Ultimately, people are looking for the end game of what we would call retirement and having enough assets to be secure. And so your right to financial dignity, or your right to financial freedom, is my message in the way of being proactive, being the plan man. Everybody needs a plan, is to go about putting together enough assets, income stream, resources, so that you control when you can, quote unquote, retire, that you're not reliant upon a government system or government aid or other devices besides your own self-sufficiency. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It makes a lot of sense. So to achieve financial dignity, financial freedom, you need financial literacy. And you say that is heavily lacking in today's society. And that is why you want to share your 36 plus years experience, and you continue to do so through the work that you do, through the Plan Man, Ask the Plan Man podcast. So how does one achieve that financial freedom, financial dignity in today's life when inflation is rising and everything else is becoming difficult? How do you plan it? Do you save more, or do you invest more? How do you do that? What is the way to get even started at this point in time?
Well, your questions are great. So let's go to the basics. If your listener hasn't read the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, one of those habits is begin with the end in mind. So no matter where we are in life, there should be an end game or an objective we're trying to get to. No different than you getting in your car and trying to go to the local supermarket or to go see your in-laws. You need to know the direction. You need to know what kind of traffic's going to be there. If the road's under construction, is it raining or snowing outside? Was there a mudslide? Like, all of these are obstacles that get in our way to getting to point B, whatever that goal is. So if I want to retire at 60, what do I need to have in place financially to be in control of pulling that ripcord and walking away? And so the age-old joke is man plans and God laughs, because I said earlier, you've got obstacles. So you just mentioned inflation creeping up and what's happening with the rise in interest rates. Well, you look at what the last 10, 15, 20 years has been and where the opportunities and the boom, and again, I can only speak to the U.S. markets, is, what's happened here with the Gulf War, the dot-com, 9/11, the early 2000s, 99 into 2001, we had a lot of reasons for the markets to implode and pull back and crash in the Gulf War in 03. Then we had some healthy markets again. Real estate started to go back up. Interest rates started to come down. Then we had the whole housing bust in 07, 08, and 09, which again caused major ripple effects in the markets, real estate and stock. And so again, interest rates go lower, and then all of a sudden we've got some years of prosperity, and then COVID hits, and again everybody retracts, and it's a whole new paradigm of how to live life. And certain tech companies like Zoom exploded, right? Home delivery, the DoorDashes, the Uber Eats explode, and other sides of the business close because they can't adapt. And so now we're coming out of that. We're in the middle of 2023. We've had 100% rise in interest rates. 3% mortgages are now 7. 4% mortgages are now 7, pushing 8. So what does that mean? What does it happen? Well, again, part of the question is, what are you trying to accomplish, AJ? What are you trying to do? And what changed from when you started last year, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, 10 years ago? And so planning is building out the roadmap, and then you have to adjust. You have to kind of check in along the way. How am I doing? What's changed? And then, I'm not sure. I see some gray hairs on my screen for me. So you might have a few gray hairs. Like as time goes by, your risks change as we gray hair out. What you did when you were 30, I'll be 60. You don't necessarily want to have those same risks. So, it's this constant process and evolution. It's not, well, I did it when I was 30 and now I go forget about it. You want to review it at 30 and a half and 31 and 32 and 35. Like you're always paying attention to the surroundings and making sure that you're on course. Or, hey, it's okay to change your course. What do I need to do differently? Maybe you've had some prosperity, and instead of retiring at 60, now you're thinking 55. Well, what do I need to do then? And again, depending on the circumstance, what are the mitigating factors around that besides money, right? Because a lot of clients that I've encountered over my almost 37 years, and it's amazing because I'm only 35, so I don't know how I'm doing this for 37 years, AJ. It's a mathematical wisdom phenomena. But the biggest reason people don't retire in the United States is because they don't get health insurance. And until they get to age 65 in Medicare, they're afraid to walk away because they don't know what happens to their health insurance. And that's one of the things that we help them and counsel them on and make sure they understand their options. But it has to be part of their budget because maybe the company paid for it and now they have to pay for it. And for somebody in their later 50s and 60s, you're talking 10, 20 grand per, 10 grand a person, 20 grand a couple easily on the private pay health insurance side. So that becomes a headwind, right? Now, if you're a multimillionaire, you were an early investor or a founder of Facebook and Google, and you don't have those issues. You got estate planning issues, taxation issues, and well different. So depending on your business owner, your entrepreneur, what they're doing, they've got so many segments that they need to address. You have to be an octopus, right? It's really not one problem. It's a multitude. And then how do you manage it, right? So if you're a doctor, you're a professional, accountant, an attorney, you're self-employed. You're going to need to look at things like key person insurance or coverage, disability on yourself, disability on your business partner, key man life insurance on your business partner. I mean, there's, again, so many different things. If you're running a commercial operation, what kind of commercial insurance? Cyber liability is a massive problem right now. A lot of people who are merchants or collecting clients' data and information and payment systems are at risk. So, we could spend a couple of days talking about all the challenges. So it again, to start backwards a little bit, it just depends on what the situation is, who that listener is, what they're trying to do. It could be somebody working for General Electric with a pension and a 401k and benefits and a family. And it could be somebody who owns 6 different franchises, right? Or somebody who is into the technology and wants to, have an IPO at some point. Everybody's got different challenges.
Right, Bruce. So the thing is that a lot of times when people plan their, finances, then a lot of times the mindset is about retirement planning. It comes down to that, and it is good. But many a times you start becoming defensive about in your planning. And if you become too offensive, then you might just lose your money. You might put your money into the wrong sort of things.
Sure.
But for somebody who is say 25, 25, 27, and he or she is planning their life, then what should they plan for? Should they plan for life? Should they plan for health, Medicare, retirement? Should they think of acquiring new skills which will last, which will be with them? And
Sure.
and also about living the life. How do
Well,
you plan? Because if you just don't want to miss out on any of these stages, because
Right.
it's your life and you want to live it. How do you do that?
Well,
Why I asked the skill part was, Bruce, that very quickly is that when you lost your business, your work in 2016, then you used all your experience and skills,
that's right.
to get everything back. And that is actually, dignity, and getting all that dignity back getting back all your old glory is something nothing can match that. So how do you guide somebody who is just starting his career, say 25, 27 in his
All
life?
right. So let me unravel some of what you said in there, because a couple different questions and answers I can do. So I'll break it down. So if you think about life's journey, the 20 and 25 and 30-year-old has a different goal and objective in front of them than the 60-year-old, but you still should be looking forward and planning for the longer term. So in essence, you have short-term, intermediate term, and long-term goals that you're helping mentor clients. I have. So a young couple, it's going to start out with, I'm getting out of college and I'm going to get a spouse. I want to get engaged. I need an engagement ring. I want to buy our first home. Eventually, we're going to have our family. And all of these needs are changing and adjusting their short-term focus, right? So now there's going from renting to a mortgage payment and what that requires and down payments to now having a child and maybe losing an income stream or a reduction in an income stream. And on top of that, well, now I got to start saving for college because we value education and that's not inexpensive anymore. Fundamentally in the US or globally, we want education because education is going to buy us that financial freedom later if we're properly trained or make the right connections, right? So you go to Stanford back in the day and you're meeting with the Google founders and the like. Well, that's a great network to be part of, right? And be in Silicon Valley. So that education, the Ivy League education, is way valuable than maybe a community college. And I'm not knocking community college, but again, it's just a different skill set, mindset, and most importantly, contacts, relationships. More hands you make, more money you shake. So if you and I went to Harvard or we went to Oxford together in our class with 40 other people like-minded, we're going to have lifelong relationships and we're going to aspire to be challenged by each other as well. So your life's journey there, but it doesn't mean you don't put a couple dollars away into a retirement plan as well as you're doing these things. Now you're challenged with living in the moment, right? I want to go out to dinner. I want to take vacations. I need to fly back to, you said you're from New Delhi, so you have family in the U.S. and you want to go see them, or you have people in the U.S. want to come see you. That's expensive, right? Those plane tickets and the travel time. And by the way, you're not going overnight. You're usually going to go for 2 or 3 weeks, if not a month. So how do you afford that? So you have lifestyle demands. You have what we call committed expenses and discretionary expenses. And so the key to any plan in the financial sense starts with budget. You got to have the right budget. You have to know your cash flow, your taxes, your savings. How do you pay yourself first, right? And then build out accordingly and find your own personal balance. Now, unfortunately, in the US, way too many people want immediacy and they get into debt because they take on credit cards and obligations they can't afford today. They don't want to wait 5 years, so they go finance. And outside of your home, I don't know if that's necessarily always the right decision, but isn't car leasing a lifelong trap? If you just keep leasing a car, you never get away from that payment. Whereas I'm more a proponent of buying maybe certified pre-owned 3-year-old car, save that 40%, keep it for a few years, but I also get to afford myself a higher end car for way less money than maybe buying a second tier car, right? So I might like a luxury brand, but instead of paying $120,000 for it, I'll get it for $60,000, $65,000, and I'll keep it for 5 or 7 more years, and my use of money is way, way less expensive, right? So, again, assets that are depreciating versus assets that are appreciating. A car's, in most sense, unless you're buying collectibles, a car's a depreciating asset. Now, you asked about, you mentioned things about overcoming. So in 2016, I lost my business, making upwards of $400,000 a year, lost my ability to earn that income, had to find a new way to go about existing, literally existing. Bankruptcy, lost everything we had to the tune of millions of dollars. Unfortunate black cloud in our home for a number of years. And then 2.5 years ago, just kind of revisited where my skill sets lie, what I did in the past to be successful, and launched an insurance agency to focus on and educate people in the world of insurance. So I don't manage money like I did as an investment advisor, meaning stocks, bonds, mutual funds. But we do health insurance, we do Medicare, we do life insurance, we do annuities, disability, long-term care. And again, as you introduced at the beginning of the show, it's about financial literacy, is people just don't understand this stuff. Now, especially for somebody who's immigrating to this country, you have an equally challenging task, right? Language barrier for one, interpretation for another, and then understanding U.S. laws and customs of what's expected, what's anticipated, what's required. You've got issues of what's called state minimum. You can't just drive a car in this country without having some level of auto insurance, right? You can't just get in a car and drive legally. You could drive illegally, right? But you're supposed to be insured. But then what do you do for life insurance? Do you believe in life insurance? What do you do for health insurance? What is Obamacare? What am I supposed to do with that? What's Medicaid? How come I'm on a Medicaid platform? I don't understand. So I don't understand. There's a lot of I don't understands. Well, the sad story is most Americans don't understand this stuff, AJ. And so that's part of what the podcast is about. That's part of what I do with coaching people, is really helping them dissect and understand. So I'm an educator. I try and break it down. Not that I'm talking in a room of, MIT PhD graduates talking at some kind of quantum physics, level that everybody's heads are spinning, but giving more in the basics so they can understand and interpret it. And for me, my last comment is information is power. And so when people throw things at me, I have questions. I don't have the initial answer. I want to know more. I want to understand to the depths of it so that I could say, AJ, based on what you shared with me, if I'm understanding the situation, now here's my feedback, input, or suggestions, right? And so that's the give and take, and that's my strength. And I think where, people see my reviews or speak to clients of mine and why we're so referable is I take that time to make sure, AJ, did we answer all your questions? Do you really understand? Most people have multiple decisions to make, and they have multiple items to evaluate and assess. And if you don't understand it, to me, the number one problem in this country is apathy. People just don't care, but they don't care because they don't understand. And once they understand what they're embarking on, they can make good decisions. And that's my role, is to help you make a good decision and be comfortable with it, not second guess it. Because if you don't trust me and I give you the advice, you're going to do it because you think I talked you into it. And then you're going to start second guessing it with everybody you talk to, wondering if it was the right decision. And then eventually that undermines it. And then somebody else gets in your ear who may not be serving your purpose. I always say, AJ, I have nothing to sell, just problems to solve. So I have no agenda. You tell me what you need. You tell me what's going on. I'm going to ask you questions. As a good advisor should, is be consultative. Because if you and I are both wearing glasses. So if you came into the eye exam room and now I'm looking at your teeth and your ears, am I paying attention? Well, you're at the eye doctor. You don't want the eye doctor looking at your teeth. So you have to understand what the circumstances are best to say, all right, let's check your glasses. I just had mine checked, and, how to change my prescription a little bit. Anyways, that help answer?
Yes. So in terms of financial literacy, and there is, it's so much of lacking everywhere, even in India, and I talk to a lot of people. This is a challenge. Why is it, out of experience, why is it that people want to talk about money, but not about financial education or financial literacy for themselves? What is it that holds them back? Is it the numbers? Is it that they think that we will learn about it later in life? And if they want to, then what's the best way to for them to get started? Where is it, where and when they should start with this financial literacy?
So I think most people have a paradox challenge when it comes to money. We're kind of taught, depending on your ancestry and family history, talking about money's a taboo. It's nobody's business. I already told you how much I used to make and what I lost. Most people won't ever talk about that. They won't be vulnerable. It's none of your business. It's a secret, whether they're successful or not successful. We were kind of taught, that's not something you talk about. It's nobody's business what you make, right? So now the dialogue doesn't exist amongst peers and friends because we were always told in some aspect of like, well, you don't want to talk about that. And so that's the first line. Second is the schools aren't geared to give a tremendous amount of education and literacy in the financial space. Now, you could take an accounting class, you could take a bookkeeping class. I remember taking a typing class in high school, but I didn't start getting more access to that until I went to college. So at the high school level, you're not getting a lot of that I recall. It's been a while, been 100 years since I was in high school, but I remember taking typing and computing, and I don't remember taking much more than math, right? And how's my trigonometry and cosining, serving me today? What am I doing with that? But then you go to college, and I did have a background in computers, but I was able to take classes in finance. They intertwined a little bit, but I have found I had an aptitude into the financial space. So my degree's in MIS, Management Information Systems, different skill set, math set type requirements, logic, right? But I found that finance was more to me. And my first job out of college was in the computer space, and I was miserable. And this was, in the mid 80s, 1985. So no computer in the world of tracking stocks. You had to call somebody. You didn't have CNBCs on the world. Like it was a totally different where you had to actually get on the thing called a phone. You had to talk to your stockbroker. He would tell you what the price was and whether or not you wanted it. And I did better picking my own stocks than this guy I had at the brokerage firm. And I explored getting into the business, and that's how I got started in 1986. I'm like, I'm better than that guy. I didn't really understand what they did. And so I had to self-educate all these years and evolve from being a stock broker to a financial advisor to a financial planner, right? It was an evolution that the more, this is cliche in a sense, the more tools in my toolbox, the more areas I can help AJ. And so when you think about that, again, I said to you earlier, is I don't have anything to sell. I just have problems to solve. So if you need tax help, I'll bring in a tax advisor. You need estate work, I'll bring in an estate planning attorney. You need an investment advisor to manage your stocks and bonds or stock options, I'll bring somebody in now when I used to do that. I'll handle the insurance work. But at the end of the day, it's your own financial team that I bring to the table in most cases if people need it. But everybody has to start somewhere. You talked earlier about the younger person, versus somebody more mature in the later stages. Well, the person in the later stages might be playing catch up, or if they've done some good things, they just want to know how close are they? How am I doing? Right. And we're not going to get into the whole investment world of, stocks and bonds today, but, it's just a matter of how your risk tolerance matches to what you invest your money in. But clearly, first and foremost, and I did it in the relaunch of my new business, I always invest in myself, right? More education. What don't you know? Who can open up doors for you? Finding the right new connections. How do I get more exposure? How did you and I cross paths in the first place to be here was because I stepped into a couple of new arenas in the podcast space to then get introduced to the matching system that put us together. So if I don't invest in those things, one thing cost me nothing. The next one was a $1,500 investment, which then got me into this platform, and paying a small monthly subscription gets me into a new community. So if I'm not receptive to spending, and it's not spending, it's investing, you got to invest in yourself. You can't really see the books behind me. Maybe it's cut off, but there's tons of books out there. I listen to Audibles and other, they're kind of hidden over there, but so Are you reading? Are you listening? When you go to the gym or go out and walk around the block, what are you doing to spend time investing in yourself, sharpening your saws, putting a new tool in your toolbox? There's a lot of great books out there for people that are maybe self-employed or self-reliant on their income, right? I say since 1986, I may not have been technically self-employed because you had a W-2 earnings check, but that revenue was 100% based on my activities and efforts. So there was no salary when you're a stockbroker, right? So you have to eat what you shoot. You have to go find and harvest. So you hear terms. There's finders, minders, and grinders. And if you're going to be a rainmaker and be successful, you know how to do all those things.
Right, right. So financial literacy is all about continuous learning and self education, and that's what you do at Ask the Landman podcast. So, how can people connect with you, Bruce, and learn more about from your podcast and also about your Weinstein Wealth Insurance Solutions, so that people can also engage with you professionally?
Sure. Thank you, AJ. So easy one is planman.tv. We'll take you to our YouTube channel for all our podcast episodes based on you. I think this is a live recording, you said, or live post. So episode 45 is out. We've got a variety of topics, US based or otherwise, still education, understanding, leasing versus financing a car, estate planning, special needs trust. 25% of families out there have special needs children. I had a special needs attorney on. So, it's not just, tell me about life insurance or tell me about long-term care. I have a lot of different topics out there for education, learning, maybe more niche oriented. So planman.tv will get you there. We're on every podcast channel on the audio side. So Apple, Spotify, whatever. And then WeinsteinWealth.com is our insurance business itself. So my last name, the word wealth, WEALTH. So it's Weinstein Wealth Insurance Solutions, but WeinsteinWealth.com. And then you can get me at Bruce at Ask the Plan Man email, or Bruce at Weinstein Wealth. Either one will get to me. And then we've got a toll-free number. You can call me anywhere in the world, 844-PLAN-MAN, and that'll ring away on all my phones. So multitude of ways. But at the core, anything Ask the Plan Man, you'll find me. Social media, LinkedIn, it's just my name, Bruce Weinstein. Facebook, we have everything. Instagram, we have everything. Twitter. So I try and cover all the social media aspects. Be hard not to find me, AJ.
Absolutely, and learning. You have a lot of experience. You have a lot of basic understanding that people can understand from. And this is, as you say, it's all about self education and financial literacy, and that will lead to that will actually lead you to achieving your right to financial dignity.
Can I throw one more thing in there that I think is pertinent here? So if you think about the U.S. system, Merrill Lynch, Goldman Sachs, the big brokerage firms require a minimum amount of assets to work with them. So I don't know about you, but I didn't just wake up with $1 million when I was born, right? Or I didn't graduate college with $1 million to go get help from those big firms. And so part of what I'm doing, and this served me from the day I started, because at 23 years of age, I wasn't in the millionaire circles, right? I came from humble beginnings, single mom, divorced, parents. My mother died at a young age. We didn't come from money. So I had to go out and work for it. And so I gravitated towards those people that had to work and put their nickels together to get somewhere. And what I identified as the industry was changing and evolving, well, they just wanted to work with the higher net worth people, and nobody was serving that audience. And so the big piece of what this is about is for people who can't afford to work with Merrill Lynch or Goldman Sachs, and provide you an opportunity to get your stepping stones in place, learn some things, because your average advisor out there is not going to work with you if you have $2,000. But everybody has to start somewhere. And so I'm in that camp of I don't serve the 1%. I serve the 99%, because the 1% don't need me. but the 99% that's getting started, my kids don't have a clue. I have to teach them, right? So everybody out there is now my child. How can I teach you to get where you want to be? And these are the steps that are required. And so I think that's a big passion behind this, is giving it to the mass audience because they're just not getting it.
Absolutely, absolutely, and people certainly need a lot of education, and it's such a nice thing that you are imparting them. Not only you are taking care of the 99% of people who actually need your help, but also helping them understand the nitty gritties and intricacies of financial education, financial literacy. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for having me.